called Limelight Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Kakwadash. Double honors to the elders, apostles, great millstone who rule and teach world, the hopeful elect, the house of David. All right, the 1/3. Sincere shalom to likewise brothers, sisters. All right, that's tuning in, pushing the truth, with all truth and sincerity. House of David, the 1/3, and the women and children that's tuning in, listening, and learning. Now, this is going to be a video, and this appears to be an Edomite. It's going to break down how the global financial system is done, and this is going to lead to the charagma. All right, so I'm gonna just play this video, then I'll just end it off on there. Shalom.
This only goes up to 600 billion. So this is $530 billion of bank failures so far in this global financial crisis that we are currently in. Probably the worst financial crisis in all of history. That's how it's going to end up playing out, I believe. At goldsilver.com, we have a price match guarantee, free shipping, and global storage options. Learn more about how to invest in precious metals at goldsilver.com. Hi, everyone. The financial crisis is not over with, and I'm going to show you why. So, Dan, if you can bring up my screen. Now, Real Vision had just posted this. Current bank failures have exceeded 2008 adjusted for inflation. I'm going to come back to this chart later because it's very, very important. This is an older article from March 20th, but the banking crisis might not be over. This was a very lucid article that brings up some very good topics and a reason to still be wary about the global. This is a global financial crisis, and it's just starting. But Credit Suisse's near failure is stoking uncertainty about whether the banking crisis can be contained. By the way, in the banking crisis, I took a look at the timeline, but I think I already covered this in another report. That the CEO of Silicon Valley Bank was also simultaneously a director at the San Francisco Federal Reserve. So within like a week of each other, this guy lost two very highly paid jobs all at once for his failure to guide Silicon Valley Bank successfully and watch things. Yet he was also on the board of directors of the San Francisco Federal Reserve. And it just shows you, the more I learn about all of this, the more I know that Janet Yellen, Powell, these men and women do not know what they're doing. They lack an understanding of fundamental economics, a timeline of how the banking crisis unfolded. Now, I'm going to take you to my own timeline. This is from a presentation that I did in mid-March, right after Silicon Valley Bank. And this shows, or maybe it was just before, I can't remember, but it shows the unrealized gains and losses on investment securities in the banking system. So this is the 2008 global financial crisis. So it reached basically minus 75 billion. And then you see just like a top that's spinning just fine, and then it starts to wobble, and then the wobbles get bigger. This is the wobbles getting bigger here. And I discovered this about a month or two before the Silicon Valley Bank failure. And I presented this in my Wealthion presentation, which was made before the Silicon Valley Bank failure, and I believe then it was presented just after the Silicon Valley Bank failure came in the middle. But the day after, or the Monday after, Silicon Valley Bank was seized on a Friday. The Monday after, there was a report from some economists on the banking sector, and the system's market value of assets is $2 trillion lower than suggested by their book value. If you marked them to market, the bank assets have declined by an average of 10% across all banks. And 10% of banks have larger unrecognized losses than those at Silicon Valley Bank, with 10% of banks having lower capitalization than Silicon Valley Bank. And then I went on to show you how the 2008 global financial crisis played out. April of 2007, New Century Financial went bankrupt. September, bank runs in England. March, Bear Stearns. July, IndyMac and Countrywide. September 7th, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were nationalized. Then September 15th, Lehman Brothers failed. September 16th, AIG gets bailed out. September 25th, Washington Mutual. This is the largest bank failure in history, except it's not. Technically, it is. But there was another bank failure that was far, far larger, but we're going to get to that in a minute. October, the Fed's TARP commits $700 billion in taxpayer funds. Citigroup bailout in November. December, General Motors and Chrysler get bailed out. January, Bank of America gets bailed out. February, President Obama approves $787 billion in stimulus. And June of 2009, General Motors files for bankruptcy. Now, the important thing here is the speed of how this played out. There was 5 months, 6 months, 4 months, 2 months between these crises, 8 days, 1 day, 11 days, 1 month, 1 month, 1 month, 1 month, 1 month, and 4 months. So you can see it started off slow and then it all started happening at once. Now, I'm going to take you to how it's happening this time around. March 8th, 2023, Silvergate Capital, they voluntarily closed, but basically they had reached insolvency and decided to unwind. So Silvergate. Then 2 days later, March 10th, Silicon Valley Bank seized by the FDIC. Then 2 days later, Signature Bank seized by regulators. And 1 day after that, FDIC creates Bridge Bank, and the president declares that deposits are safe. And a few days after that, Credit Suisse is sold to UBS in a shotgun wedding. They would have failed. They were within a day of failing when this happened. And it was all arranged with Swiss government guarantees. That is the reason that this marriage took place, and Credit Suisse, which had assets of 1.75 trillion. If they had failed, this was a globally systemic, critical bank that would have taken down the world monetary system. And then May 1st, First Republic is taken over by JP Morgan. But we have 2 days, 2 days, 3 days, 7 days, 2 months is the timeline so far. And I've left all of this, I'll update you periodically. I've left all of this space on the bottom there to be filled in the future, because it will be. Now, to get to the bank failures in each year adjusted for inflation. This is that chart that was put up by Real Vision. And you see that there's Washington Mutual, the largest bank failure in history. Lehman Brothers was not a bank. That was bigger, much bigger than Washington Mutual. But this is the largest bank failure in history. And then you've got these 24 other banks. So you have the second largest at the time and third largest, and then the next year and the next year and the next year. So when this turns dark here, that's because there's so many happening that are small banks and they're so close together that there is no blue area in the middle. So this is a lot of banks failing. This is what's happened so far, is the second largest bank failure in history, the third largest bank failure in history. And then if this only goes up to 600 billion. So this is $530 billion of bank failures so far in this global financial crisis that we are currently in. Probably the worst financial crisis in all of history. That's how it's going to end up playing out, I believe. I just spent several years studying the financial system and what is wrong with it. And I became so scared in you know, September, October. I was just rushing and rushing and rushing to try and get this book out because I absolutely knew that there was a banking crisis coming. I knew it was going to come soon. And so I wanted to get this out by October. The book was done at the end of October. It took November and December just to set up to get it printed. There was supply chain disruptions. We couldn't get paper. We couldn't get cardboard. I ordered way too many of these books because of that. Took all of December and January to open up actually November, December, January, just to open up the Amazon store and get these things written. And then the book became the best-selling book on precious metals in February. And then Amazon shadow banned us by changing the book from a book to, they listed it as a video game. And just today, I finally got them to change it back to a book. I have been battling on this every day for the last 2 months, and it has delayed the ebook, the Kindle version, and other ebook formats, and the audio book. I've spent 2 weeks in recording studios doing the audio book, and so those are coming. I promise. But first, I had to get this turned back into a book instead of a video game because it absolutely crippled my sales. So that is the big story on the current global financial crisis, and it is global because of Credit Suisse. This is global, and this is just the beginning of it. We have yet to see any of these small bank failures, and this is where, like, if you look at last week's video, I talk about how the Federal Reserve has aided all of the big banks, the biggest banks in the world, to gobble up all of the small banks and get all of their depositors on their books. And this is what is happening right now. And we have yet to see these periods like in 2009 with all these small banks failing and larger banks taking over their depositors. I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.